Hey everyone, this is Ron Watson with Lundinky. Today we're talking in week 2. We're going to detach the work that actually sets you free. Now, these points in any unresolved situation where stabilization isn't enough, you've reduced the emotional spikes. You've interrupted the replay loop. You've created some space between you and the situation. But, something still lingers, not intensity, attachment, the need to be heard, the need to be right, the need to be acknowledged, the need for things to make sense on your timeline. Now, that's what work 2 is about. Because here's the truth, most people don't want to face, but still, mentally tied to the outcome. So, and as long as you are tied to the outcome, you're not free. So, detachment is not about disconnecting from people. It's about disconnecting from the need to control how things unfold. Now, this week forced me to confront something deeper than emotion. It forced me to confront the control. So that's what was the most difficult part. That's how I started my week. Now, day 8, that's how we redefine your role. This was one of the most grounding shifts of the entire process, because part of what was fueling my frustration wasn't just the situation, it was how I saw my role in it. I had to be honest with myself. I wasn't stepping into positions that weren't mine to hold. So, their advisor, their financial authority, their validator. And when those roles weren't accepted, it created tension. Not because I lacked value, but because I wasn't placing that value where it wasn't being received. So I pretty much redefined it. I'm not the advisor, I'm not the authority, I'm not responsible for their decisions. I am my wife's partner, I am an exceptional professional. I'm a man responsible for his own space. It created clarity, and it shifted from pressure. It removed the pressure. And more importantly, it stopped me from overreaching into spaces that weren't mine to control. Now, how does this affect musicians? Join a band and start offering arrangement advice, tone suggestions, or direction. If the band resists frustration, builds detachment. Here means redefining your role. You're in a contributor, not the controller. Play your part well. Don't force influence where it's not invited. Now, day 9, probably the easiest part is let them be wrong if they are. This one is hard, not for me, but because you know something, especially from decades of experience, it's natural to want to guide, to correct, to help others avoid mistakes. But here's what I had to accept. Adults don't learn through instruction. They learn through outcomes. You can present information, you can offer perspective, but you can't force understanding. And trying to do so creates resistance. So I started repeating one simple line. It's not my job to control their decisions. It's really easy. And it's going to create a response to the trigger. So that didn't mean I stopped caring. I still do. Because once you release that responsibility, something shifts. You stop trying to manage other people's paths and start focusing on your own. Now, in regards to musicians, you see another player using poor technique or making bad career decisions. Underpricing gigs, ignoring timing, poor tone choices. You can offer insight once. After that, you let them through results. Not your responsibility to fix their path. So I think there's a commercial about that. I forget what insurance company it is. But it's funny. So day 10 was about ego versus identity. This day required a deeper level of honesty. I had to ask myself, if I removed the financial expert from the situation, what would actually remain? And the answer was revealing, because a large part of what I was feeling wasn't just about the relationship, it was about identity. Years of experience, knowledge built over decades, a sense of authority in a specific domain. When that wasn't acknowledged, it doesn't just feel like disagreement. It can feel like dismissal. But here's the distinction I had to make. My expertise is part of my identity, but it is not my entire identity. When you attach your sense of self too tightly to one role, any friction in that area feels personal. Detachment required me to loosen that grip, to recognize that my value exists beyond whether it's accepted in a specific moment. That was a turning point. Now, for musicians, if you identify as the best guitarist in the room and someone overlooks you, it hits hard. But if your identity expands beyond that, learner, creator, contributor, the same situation loses emotional weight. And that's really important. Now, day 11, forgive without agreement. Forgiveness is misunderstood. People think it means they were right, I was wrong, it didn't matter. None of that is true. Forgiveness is not about agreement. It's about release. It's the decision to stop carrying the emotional weight of something that has already happened. It's history. I mean, that's it. So I kind of reframed it. I chose not to carry this. That doesn't erase the event. It's definitely a lesson learned. It doesn't rewrite the past, but it removes the ongoing cost. Because holding it onto it, it doesn't change the outcome. It only affects you. Because again, it's history. Now, once I saw forgiveness as a form of self-respect instead of concession, it became easier to practice. For musicians, a bandmate disrespected you, cut you from a gig, or undervalued your contribution. You don't have to agree with it, but carrying that resentment into your next opportunity affects your playing, your energy, your presence. Let it go. Not for them, but for your performance. Now, day 12, this is the 10-year test. Yeah, that's right, I said it, a 10-year test. This day introduced perspective. When you're in the middle of something unresolved, everything feels immediate. Everything feels significant. But I had to step back and ask, will this matter in 10 years? And if the answer is yes, then it will likely resolve itself over time. And if the answer is no, then why am I giving it daily mental space? That question creates distance. It zooms you out of the moment and into a longer timeline. And once you see it from that perspective, the urgency fades. Not completely, but enough to gain control. Now, a musician, you might bomb performance or miss a big opportunity. It feels massive in that moment, but in 10 years, it's just one rep in a long career. That perspective reduces emotional weight instantly. Now, at Lundinky Pro, I haven't released it yet, but I'm going to tell you about it. It's going to be a game changer in live performances. And just stay tuned. Working on a few things, and I promise you it's something worth looking into. Now, moving on to day 13. This is release the fantasy conversation. This one hit close because, if I'm honest, I had replayed the perfect conversation more times than I'd like to admit. What I should have said, how I should have said it, how they would have responded, it's a loop. And it feels productive. But it isn't. It really isn't, because it keeps you anchored to a version of the past that doesn't exist. So I did something simple. I wrote it out once, everything I would have said. Then I closed it and made a decision not to revisit it. That act alone broke a major mental pattern, because once it's written, there's nothing left to rehearse. Now, speaking of rehearsing, or rehearsals or performances, you may replay that what you should have said to a bandmate, or you should have played a section. Write it down, extract the lesson, then move forward. Don't rehearse it endlessly. Now we're hitting day 14, emotional ownership. This was the anchor right here, the line that ties everything together. My mood is my responsibility. No one in that family wakes up deciding how I feel today. No one is controlling my thoughts, my reactions, or my energy. That power belongs to me. And once you fully accepted that, something shifts. You stop waiting for external changes to feel better. You stop tying your emotional state to other people's behavior. You take ownership, not in a heavy way, but in a freeing way. Now, you musicians out there, low engagement on your content, poor audience turnout, a tough crowd. It's easy to let that dictate your mood. But emotional ownership means you show up the same. Focused, consistent, steady, regardless of the external response. So, what changed in week 2? Week 1 reduced emotional volatility. Week 2 reduced attachment. And that's a different kind of progress, because this week wasn't about calming down, it was about letting go. And to be honest with you, I think I was a 3 out of 5 this week. I really was. So what I had to do, and what you should do, is letting go of control, letting go of expectation, letting go for the need of, you said it, validation. And I won't say it was easy. It wasn't, like I just pointed out. There were moments where the old patterns came back. Moments where I wanted to re-engage, to correct, to be heard. But the difference now is awareness. I could see it happening. I could choose differently. That's progress. So the real outcome, by the end of week 2, something subtle but important happened. The situation started to feel lighter. Not resolved, not fixed, but less heavy, because I wasn't gripping it as tightly. And when you loosen your grip, you create space. Space for better thinking, not NASA space, not like we're gonna roam around the moon, but space for emotional recovery, space for something new to emerge. Now, what comes next? Here's the thing. Detachment creates space, and space demands direction. So because once you've let go of old patterns, you decided to what replaces them. That's what week 3 comes in. Reframing. Not just letting go of the old narrative, but building a new one. One that doesn't position you as reactive, but is intentional. Because reactive seems, is bad. It could be bad. And unfortunately, people carry the reaction or the reactiveness negatively. So, because once you stop carrying that situation, you finally have the capacity to transform it. And that's where this really starts to shift. This is Ron Watson. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you next week. Bye. Have a good day.